If you're looking for a way to promote your hair growth naturally, faster, you have come to the right video and you have probably heard of rosemary. In this video, I'm going to share with you 3 surprising ways you can use rosemary to help grow your hair longer, stronger, and thicker. Let's get into it. Cultures have used rosemary for centuries. The research backs this up more than anything else I've ever seen. So rosemary oil has anti-inflammatory properties. It promotes nerve growth, which is the only oil I've ever heard of that promotes nerve growth, and it improves your circulation. We'll get into that during the demo. It also prevents premature graying, dandruff, and dry, itchy scalp. It is as effective as minoxidil or Rogaine, which are 2 popular prescribed medications that you can take for hair growth, and it's even more effective than Rogaine and minoxidil when it comes to itchy scalp. 2 more separate studies have shown that the leaf extract, which is completely different from the essential oil, stimulates hair growth even with balding and alopecia. Now for peppermint, peppermint is a vasodilator. It is a scalp stimulator and works perfectly in conjunction with rosemary, which is why I combined them. It also leaves a really nice refreshing and tingling sensation on the scalp, and it's amazing for promoting hair growth. So as you can see, I made sure that everything was completely seeped underneath the water. That was about 1.5 cups if I didn't mention that. And you just want to bring it to a boil, and then once it's boiled, then you can see it's boiling to your liking. You can let it continue to simmer for about 10 to 15 minutes, and this is what I did here. Once that is done and I feel like it's boiled enough, you can tell because the herbs look cooked, okay? The color changes, they look cooked. And so now what you want to do is put the lid back on, move it off the burner, and then just let it cool, and it is ready to use as soon as it cools. So that could be 1 hour, it could be overnight if you're feeling lazy. On this day, I was feeling lazy, so I left it overnight, and this is the next morning. As you can see, before we took it out, it wasn't like really brown, but now that it's sat for a while and completely cooled, it becomes this very reddy brown color, and that's when you know that you've got the right rosemary water. This is how it works. So with the measurements I used, it came to about 1 cup. Of course, after all the evaporation during the boiling process, and you do not have to use a cup measurement. Of course, you can use whatever measurement you want because this does not go bad quickly, and you can easily store it in the fridge. So you can absolutely double the recipe, or you can half the recipe if you just want to try this out for the first time. So what I do is I always shake it up before, just in case anything kind of separated. It's just good to shake your product, and I only focus this on the scalp. Now you can spray this on your hair if you want, but I'm telling you right now, it's more like a waste because while it does have some benefits if you spray it on your hair, more of the benefits come from spraying it on your scalp. So just spray it on your scalp for maximum benefits. Not to mention, you can promote hair growth from the ends of your hair. You can only retain the length there. Promoting the hair growth starts from the scalp. I say if you have very oily hair and you wash your hair pretty often, and by that I mean every 2 to 3 days, you can get away with spraying this in your hair every day. But if you have dry hair or you don't wash your hair as often like I do, you only want to spray this on the day when you wash your hair, or latest, or let me say earliest, the night before you wash your hair. This is simply because rosemary water actually has mild astringent properties, meaning it can actually make your hair feel dry if you leave it in your hair for too long. So for me, because I know I naturally have dry hair, I don't even risk leaving it in my hair just in case it makes my hair feel dry. It hasn't made my hair feel dry so far, but I also haven't left it in my hair long enough to ever feel those side effects. So again, how often should you use this? Every time you wash your hair. But if you're looking for a minimum, like you don't want to do it every time, I would say once a week or once every other week will also still give you amazing hair growth benefits. I go under heat for about 20 minutes. And then it's basically done. And at the end of my wash day, this is what my hair looked like. It was a blow dry and trim day. Now the next way to use rosemary is the simplest way, and I think it's the perfect way for the lazy girl like me occasionally. You still want to use rosemary, but you don't want to make anything. All you want to do is buy something and just use it immediately. This is using rosemary oil in your shampoo, but it has to specifically be rosemary essential oil. I always get this in the comments. Can I use the Mael Organics one? Can I use a different oil mix? No, because those oils, they're in a base of a carrier oil, which is like olive oil, argan oil, castor oil. These oils are actually going to make your hair even more oily. And when you're shampooing your hair, you're usually trying to get oil off your hair. And maybe your shampoo already has certain oils in it. You don't want to add any other oils. Essential oils are extremely light and they won't add any oiliness to your hair, which is why you are only using an essential oil. And all you have to do is use 1 to 2 drops of rosemary essential oil in your shampoo on your second wash, not the first wash, okay? The first wash is to get all the oil off all the gunk, all the buildup off your hair. The second wash is where it's really gonna lather and clean your hair. That's when you want to add the rosemary oil. Mix it up in your palms, but do not lather it. And then you want to put that on your scalp, not on your hair. Lather that very well for about 1 to 2 minutes, or you can even let it sit for 1 to 2 minutes after you're done lathering. Then you want to wash it out and proceed with your wash day as usual. You don't have to do anything else, which is why this is one of my favorite and easiest ways to use rosemary oil. You can just keep a little bit of essential oil in your bathroom so that you use it every time you wash your hair. And for how often to use this one, you can do this every single time you wash your hair with shampoo. I'm hoping that's only like once a week though. Now, if you prefer oiling your scalp and you just enjoy the experience of putting oil on your scalp, doing a scalp massage, and you want to incorporate rosemary in it, firstly, if you already have an oil mix, you can just add in a couple drops of rosemary essential oil in there. But if you want to make it from scratch, this is how I make it. The first thing I recommend is fresh rosemary, okay? I've been using rosemary for years now. And whenever I compare fresh rosemary versus dry rosemary, fresh always works best. But yes, if you have no access to fresh rosemary, you can go ahead and use dry. But again, if you have fresh, get fresh. You don't have to grow it in your garden like I do. This is actually my mother's garden. You can just go to the grocery store, check in the herb and spice section of your grocery store or a health food store. You will most likely find fresh rosemary. So I start by thoroughly washing it in the sink. And once that's done, I move it over to a paper towel. You can also move it to a cloth towel as well. And what I like to do is to just suck out as much water as possible. And I start by just rolling it up. And once it's completely rolled up, I just press down to make sure that as much water as possible has been absorbed. The amount of rosemary you will use will depend on the amount of oil that you're making. Whenever I use fresh rosemary oil, I make a small batch, which is always 30 to 50 mils of oil, which is very little. So you can use about this amount of rosemary. To be honest, there's no specific number. You can just sort of eyeball it. So you can count the stems. You can use a little bit less than this, a little bit more than this. It's all up to you. So I'm going to be measuring a 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. You can use any base oil you like. This is the oil I had on hand today, so I'm using olive oil. You can use camellia oil, avocado oil, any kind of thin to medium density oil. I wouldn't suggest full on castor oil because that is too thick, but you can do half and half of a lighter oil and half of the castor oil. So like I said, this is a 1/4 cup. It is about 50 mils, maybe 45 mils. I put this in a glass jar. Yes, this is the part where a lot of people always say, I don't know how to do the double boiler method. It's taking long. So this is a really quick and easy way that you can do. So first of all, I stuff all the rosemary oil into the jar, and I left a little bit of them kind of standing out of the oil simply because it's aesthetically pleasing for the video. But when you're doing it, make sure that all the stems are completely submerged in the oil. If it means cutting it into smaller pieces, you can do that. You can also batter the leaves a little bit to make sure that a little bit more of the juices are extracted. But I prefer to do this to allow the least amount of moisture. So what you're going to do is put it in a bowl of warm water, or let me say sort of hot but not hot enough to burn you to the touch, and then just leave the bottle in there to seep until it is completely cold, so maybe like 2 hours. Now I'm adding my essential oils. Again, this is kind of like my fresh rosemary versus dry rosemary thing. I think it works so much better to combine the rosemary essential oil with the actual fresh rosemary. You can skip this step if you like, but I think it just makes it so much stronger. And now for the nice tingly feeling on my scalp, I always like to add some peppermint oil. I only added 1 dropper full of the rosemary oil, and I'm adding 1 dropper full of the peppermint oil as well, or 10 to 15 drops. So once this is done, I close it up, and then I actually like to let this sit again overnight. At this point, if you really want to use it, just don't take the rosemary out. You can actually use it immediately, and all you need to do is put the dropper and squeeze a little bit out. As you can see, I'm in my bathroom now and I'm showing you how to apply it. You can just squeeze out a couple drops full, oil your scalp, and then leave it to sit overnight. But then the next day, you don't want this to like mold or start to go bad. So it is time to take out all the rosemary stems. And you're left with an oil looking like this, really nice. And then I just decant it into my bottle. I almost never buy bottles for my oils. I just like to use old skincare bottles. This is an old Estee Lauder night repair serum bottle, and I love it. The dropper is perfect. The glass bottle is perfect because it's a dark brown glass. Dark brown bottles are always the best for preserving oil because it reduces the amount of light that can damage the nutrients, and this oil can actually last for anywhere from 2 weeks to a month, depending on how hot and humid the climate is where you live. Just keep it in a cool, dry place. So as you can see, the oil is perfectly ready to use, and this is how I use it. I put a generous amount, but by generous, I just mean that my entire scalp is covered in oil. It comes up to maybe a full tablespoon, and in terms of droppers, I use 2 to 3 droppers for my entire scalp. I generously put this all over my scalp, and then I just work it down to make sure that it's perfectly absorbed into my scalp. As you'll see, I'm not putting it all over my hair. I'm just putting it directly on my scalp, and it feels so good and like tingly. If you want, you can even use this as a hot oil treatment, which means you just warm the oil up a little bit in the same way that we steeped it before by putting it in a bottle or a mug of some warm water to warm the oil. Do not heat it in the microwave or anything like that because that can denature some of the nutrients. You can use this oil up to 3 to 4 times a week. Very lightly. You can even use less than what I'm using. I only use this once a week now, the night before I wash my hair. If you hate the feeling of oil staying in your hair overnight, you can do this and leave it in your hair for like 2 hours. So when you wake up in the morning, as soon as you wake up, put the oil on your scalp and then just let it sit for like a couple hours, eat your breakfast, and then go do your hair care routine. You will still get amazing benefits. And as you can see, right now I'm doing a scalp massage. Even if you don't want to use this oil or any similar oil, scalp massages are amazing for hair growth, and I feel like they just activate and make any ingredient that you put on your scalp work so much better. So you can do the scalp massage whether you're using this oil, a different oil, a serum. And if you're using oils that are specifically similar to this one that have like rosemary and peppermint and they leave that sort of tingly feeling on your scalp, it will feel so much more tingly on your scalp when you do a scalp massage, and it just feels so relaxing and calming, and that can actually help your hair grow too because stress is one of the leading causes of hair loss, early graying, shedding, and even death. So do your scalp massages, okay? Hit my face on the side of the screen if you didn't subscribe in the beginning and watch this other video for a more complicated version of this oil. Bye!